Greetings, my friends. Welcome to this presentation of Soul Recovery. My name is Esther Nicholson, and I will be presenting today on healing bias and racism in recovery. This presentation is being hosted by Foundations Recovery Network. For those of you who will be submitting questions, you can submit questions on the bottom left of your screen at any point during the presentation. All questions will be answered during the last 10 minutes of the program. For resources, you can find a PDF of the presentation and additional resources under the headshot image located on the left of your screen. If you need assistance or help in any way, please email M as in Mary Pangaro, that's P as in Paul, A, N as in Nancy, G as in good, A, R as in Roger, O, that's M Pangaro at NACCME.com. That's N as in Nancy, A, CC as in cat, ME.com. If you need any help or assistance. So for NADAC credit information, in order to receive credit, you must watch the program all the way through to the end of the presentation. Do not leave the console. Please continue to stay on the platform, and you will be automatically redirected to an evaluation landing page. If this is your first time attending a webinar in 2020, you will need to create a NACCME account when you are first directed to the landing page. For all subsequent webinars you attend, you will already have an account and will just need to log in. After completion of the evaluation, you will be able to download or print your certificate. NADAC credit is only offered for the live broadcast. Again, my name is Esther Nicholson, and I am the founder and director of Soul Recovery. And I am honored to present to you today the healing of bias and racism in recovery. My name is Esther, and I have been victimized by systemic racism in recovery. Just the thought of that blows my mind, and I must admit, it's a hard pill to swallow. I haven't thought of myself as being a victim or as being victimized by anything or anyone in a very long time. In fact, I've been so resistant to taking on an identity of being a victim or victimized that in hindsight, I'm sure there were times when I missed the opportunity to have compassion and empathy for those who have unquestionably experienced being victimized. For that, I apologize and I make amends for my ignorance and inability to see beyond my own obsessive desire and need to transcend and move on from my past. You see, the deep and consistent healing work that I've done and that I continue to do at 34 years of recovery has taught me to take responsibility for my own emotions, my failures and my successes, my wins and my losses. And in every aspect of my life, no matter what external blows I've been dealt or how egregiously someone may have treated me, it has always been a requirement in my healing process and in the process that I teach to clients all over the world to search diligently for the part I played in each and every situation and to be accountable for my side of the street. But in the past 6 months, since the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and countless others, it has become blatantly clear to me that while it is true that I must take responsibility for what I believe about myself, how I see the world, and the life I have created based on those perceptions and beliefs, that there is indeed another side of the street, which can no longer be ignored and that has nothing to do with how I see myself, but has a lot to do with how others see me and those who look like me based on their ingrained, distorted perceptions and beliefs. How people who are not Black or a person of color view and interact with me in the world of recovery absolutely does affect me and all people. It matters. It hurts. It's not fair. It's not based on equality. It's wrong. And it's got to stop now. The fact that I'm usually the only Black one, the only Black or 1 out of 3 or 4 Blacks in attendance at a recovery event doesn't make me special, as I once naively thought it did. It actually makes me a victim of systemic racism. It's not my imagination that when touring treatment facilities, I'm not only the lone Black professional in the building, but there are not even any Black residents or people of color being treated in those facilities, especially privately owned high-end treatment facilities. Where are they? Where are the people who look like me? We've only recently started seeing people of color represented on recovery websites and promotional materials. Why is that? It's not my imagination that when I facilitate alumni retreats or am invited to present at recovery conferences and events, I'm the only Black person in the presenter lineup, as well as 1 out of 3 or 4 Black people at the entire event. Where are we? Where are the people who look like me? It's not my imagination when I see the difference between privately owned treatment centers and county or state-funded treatment centers, and the difference in the quality of treatment being offered and the locations of these facilities. Why is that? Why are people who look like me deemed less valuable to those in decision-making positions? No, it's not my imagination. No, I'm not overreacting. And no, I'm not special because I'm the only one in the room. I have been victimized by systemic racism. And those of you listening to this audio and who are attending this course, you've either been victimized or you are knowingly or unknowingly perpetrating the disease of systemic racism. My friends, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to activate guilt, shame, or blame. I'm here to activate awareness. I'm here to activate awareness, healing, and effective change. I'm here to activate compassionate accountability. So what is bias and racism? And I know that all of us, we know what that is, right? But I think that we become so numbed out to the scope of it that it's not really in our conscious awareness what it is. So it's important to define it because we have become so numbed out to the scope of it that we don't even recognize that it's happening when it's happening. So bias is prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. So let me ask you, and I want you to just take this into your heart right now. Are you willing to become aware of the times when you have exercised bias towards a race, class, gender, sexual orientation, ethnic group, or anyone who thinks, looks, behaves, and believes differently than yourself? Are you willing to become aware in a way that you've never allowed yourself to become aware before? Just take that in for a moment. Racism. Prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership of a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. So let me ask you, are you willing to become aware of the times when you have had racist thoughts or have taken an action against a minority or a marginalized group of people? Are you willing? Because that's what it's going to take to heal this. Not just in the world, in our country, in our communities, in our organizations, but in our very own beingness. We must become willing to see what we haven't been able to see. Are you willing to become aware of the times that you haven't taken action on behalf of a minority or a marginalized group of people? You see, inaction based on bias and racism is just as harmful as racist actions. So where does bias and racism come from? Racism is a response to familial, generational, and ancestral programming and conditioning. And this unconscious programming drives our conscious decisions as to who we befriend, have relationships with, accept as equal, hire, or even deem worthy of receiving quality service. Without becoming aware of and addressing the hardwired beliefs we carry about ourselves and others, be it an attitude of superiority or inferiority, neither addiction nor racism can truly be resolved. Racism and bias, they are such insidious diseases that they go unnoticed and unacknowledged every single day. And it's no one's fault. You know, like I said, this is not, this presentation is not to make you feel bad. This presentation is available to bring you into a state of awareness that racism has become so ingrained in our unconscious minds and culture that we have become numbed out to the reality of it and have accepted it as normal. It is not normal. And as we are called to dismantle systemic racism anywhere on the planet, we must dismantle it everywhere. It is imperative that we start to identify, address, and heal racism in recovery. Recovery is where people come to get help, to rediscover and to reconnect with hope, possibility, and their sense of wholeness. If this key component is not addressed, which I believe that racism is a trauma, that it's a trauma that we've experienced, no matter what side of it you're on. If you're on my side of it, then of course there's been trauma attached to that. And even if you're on the other side of it, where you're the one that is perpetrating it, then you've experienced trauma as well, where you have been conditioned and programmed to believe that someone is different than you, or not just different than you, but less than you. I believe that is an addictive trauma as well. And if it is not addressed in recovery, then the people who come to us for help are being underserved. If they never see anyone who looks like them, they are left to either feel special, which is just another defense mechanism, or they are left feeling inferior. And while we are not responsible how everyone feels, of course, we are all responsible for our feelings. In a sense, we are responsible for one another, to care for one another, to know our oneness with each other, to treat everyone fairly and equally. See that everyone is represented at the table. That's recovery. That's real recovery. To acknowledge and to address those deep core hidden beliefs and perceptions that we have about other, so that it can be healed and dissolved and brought up to the quality of recovery that we aspire to have. How do we heal racism and bias? It starts with you as an individual. In order to heal collectively, we must do the deep inner dive to heal individually. And that's why I've created Soul Recovery, 12 Steps to Healing Bias and Racism in Recovery. The steps are designed to make us conscious of the illusions, perceptions, deeply held beliefs, fears, and resentments that have blocked us from God. If the word God offends you, then please feel free to refer to it in a way that represents equality, oneness, love, clarity, integrity, compassion, and freedom. These qualities reside in the highest version of yourself. Wouldn't you agree? That higher power, qualities of higher power, the qualities of God, or whatever it is that you're comfortable calling it, is actually the highest version of yourself. And there are many of you listening to this who are blocked from your own inner peace, clarity, confidence, and stillness because you are unconsciously carrying perceptions, beliefs, memories, and behavior patterns that are incongruent or out of alignment with the highest version of yourself, the highest aspect of yourself, your soul, that is completely colorblind. In fact, it is blind to anything unlike unconditional love, oneness, peace, and freedom. It is connected to every soul on the planet. And if you're disconnected from the soul of others, you are disconnected from the very life force that created you. Racism is not in alignment with equality and oneness. Exclusivity does not align with inclusivity. Superiority and inferiority does not align with wholeness and oneness. And judgment is out of alignment with compassion and service. Recovery is integrity and love in action. The Soul Recovery Program that I've designed is a powerful way to use the 12 steps of recovery to heal the root causes of bias and racism. The Quad A Bridge is a process that precedes the first step of recovery. It's a process that I've created called the Quad A Bridge, and it precedes the 12 steps of recovery. It precedes the first step. The Quad A Bridge consists of 4 axioms: awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, and admit. We cannot acknowledge what we are not aware of. We cannot heal what we won't acknowledge and accept. And we can not allow a power greater than ourselves to take us to a better place until we admit that our way of seeing, being, thinking, and acting are out of alignment with equality, inclusivity, and racial integrity at the highest level. So again, the Quad A bridge, which precedes the first step, consists of awareness, acknowledgement, acceptance, and admitting. So let me break it down for you. Awareness brings to the conscious mind that which has been hidden in the unconscious or subconscious mind. There are certain questions and tools that we use in compassionate inquiry that can trigger and activate perceptions, beliefs, and patterns that are outside of the field of your conscious awareness. In my personal experience, when I've become aware of a perception, belief, or memory that has been operating in my subconscious mind, it creates a very powerful sense of release and healing. Awareness that's the beginning of everything. And we tend to walk around in this world in our lives. We're so busy, we're so preoccupied, we're doing so many things and there's so many voices going on in our heads that we're not conscious of the unconscious, right? Like there's just so much stuff happening in there that's from years ago, or ancestral and familial and generational, that we don't even realize that that's how we really think, or that's how we really feel, or that's what we really believe. But when we can slow down and really look at whatever it is that's up for us, whatever pivotal moment that we're facing, and right now we are facing a pivotal moment in history of looking at racism and bias in a way that we have never slowed down enough, we have never taken the time to do before. So when we can slow down, when we have hit a bottom with business as usual, and when we've made a decision that we are ready to heal and grow, we're ready to teach others, we're ready to support others in a way that we've never done before, we never have before, and that activates that something in your awareness that has been hidden. So I like to use the analogy of the computer, right? You're on your screen and you're doing your work, but in the hard drive or in the software, there's a virus, and your computer, your programs are running so slow, and your computer keeps shutting down, and all kinds of stuff is happening, right? You're not able to get your work done, and everything's just crawling along. And it's because there's a virus in the hard drive, or there's a virus, or you haven't upgraded your computer to where it needs to be upgraded. And so what awareness does is it begins the process of clearing out the virus, deinstalling the virus, and or upgrading your software so that your programs can run efficiently. And so that's the same thing that happens in the unconscious or subconscious of our minds. If there is a virus in there of otherness, of inferiority or superiority, then our outer lives are not going to run efficiently. Our service, the service that we are offering to others, is not going to be at the highest level because we have not been upgraded in our consciousness to where we need to meet the need. So that's awareness. Acknowledgement. Acknowledging that what you have become aware of is out of alignment with oneness, equality, integrity, and love, and has caused harm to yourself and others. What you have become aware of, and that what you have become aware of has created emotional blocks and life-diminishing patterns. Accept. believe, or the definition of accept is to believe or come to a realization that something is correct and valid. Remember the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. So when we come to the realization that what we have become aware of and are acknowledging about our perceptions and beliefs that are out of alignment with equality and oneness, this is the bridge that transports us from darkness into light. This is the bridge that allows us to become effective, so much more effective in the world and to those that we serve. Admit that what I have become aware of, acknowledge and accept as a mental and emotional addictive thought pattern and belief is such an ingrained programming in my unconscious mind that I am ready to admit personal powerlessness. And the basic text, it says, without help, it is too much for me. It is cunning, baffling, and powerful. In chapter 5 of the big book, it states, we tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the results were nil until we let go absolutely. We are all holding on to some old ideas. Not only white people in recovery, but all people, Black people, people of color, people with, who are different from anyone else. We're all holding on to old ideas that we are either better than or less than. And so when I'm talking about the field of recovery, the world of recovery, where bias and racism has to be healed, I'm not just talking about white people. I'm talking about all of us who are holding on to old ideas, who are holding on to deeply ingrained emotional, mental viruses. When we all heal, when we all do this work individually, when we all take this personal look and open ourselves up to realization, to healing, that's when not only can magic happen, but that which is normal can happen. And what is normal is oneness. What is normal is everyone being represented at the table in a fair way. That's normal. That not only becomes our new normal, that becomes the true normal. That's always been there, but it's been blocked by the virus of racism. So once we really examine these 4 axioms, the Quad A Bridge, from a rigorously honest place, from a place of deep humility and self-compassion. My work, Soul Recovery, is called compassionate accountability, right? So when we can look at these areas from a place of deep self-compassion and humility and willingness, we've opened up the way now to really look at this first step of recovery, right? And I'm going to share with you a few of them. Maybe I might have time to share all of them, but I'll definitely have time to share a few of them. So step 1, and I want you to just take a breath with me right now. Just inhale deeply and exhale on the word peace. I know I've said a lot, so I want you to just relax right now into this moment as you take in step 1. I admit that I am powerless over my deeply ingrained beliefs and thought patterns of bias and racism. And these beliefs and patterns have made my life unmanageable. Take that in for a moment. Some of you might be thinking, well, my life's not unmanageable because of bias and racism. I just want to share with you a universal law that if you're experiencing unmanageability, overwhelm, anxiety, frustration, depression in any area of your life, it doesn't just have to do with one thing. It has to do with everything. And so even these unconscious beliefs, patterns, perceptions about other people, people that don't look or think like you, they are blocking you, and they are creating a traffic jam in your mind and causing unmanageability in your life and in your affairs in one place or another. Step 2, I'm coming to believe that there is a power greater than myself, that is the truth of myself and of all people, which can restore me to a consciousness of oneness, equality, and inclusivity of all people. I want you to just imagine right now, when you think of all of the people on the planet, no one has a color, no one has a disability, no one has a different sexual preference. It's all perfect. It's all exactly as it's supposed to be. No one's different. I just want you to think of just this oneness, just being one in love. And just breathe that in. What would happen if you made all of your decisions in recovery with those that you serve, those that you hire, those who are in the board meetings? What difference would that make from that place? I'm coming to believe that there is a power greater than my familiar way of being, that is the truth of myself and of all people, who can restore me to a consciousness of oneness, equality, and inclusivity of all people. I believe that this power can restore me, and I am willing and I am ready. Step 3, I've made a decision to turn my familial, generational, and ancestral beliefs, patterns, memories, thoughts, hardwired programming, and conditioning of racism over to the care of God as I understand God. I am willing to turn my limited beliefs about God, higher power, myself, and my fellow man and woman over to the care of God, as I am now coming into a higher, more expanded, deeper, and new understanding of oneness. If there is any belief about higher power or God or whatever it is that you choose to call it, which condones separation or inferiority or superiority, then it's time to get a new higher power, a new God, or a new understanding. Are you willing? Are you willing? Step 4, I've made a fearless and rigorously honest inventory of my beliefs, fears, patterns, and actions towards anyone and everyone who thinks, looks, behaves, and believes differently than myself. Let me repeat that again. I've made a fearless and rigorously honest inventory of my beliefs, fears, patterns, and actions towards any and everyone who thinks, looks, behaves, and believes differently than myself. I got to tell you, and I know that many of you taking this course today, in this class today, that you've gone through the 12 steps. And if you've gone through it thoroughly, this work is going to bring you home. This work is going to set you free. Healing racism and bias. Not only, you're not doing that for people of color. You're not doing that for Black people. You're not doing that for anyone that looks differently than you. You're really doing that for yourself, for your freedom, for your spiritual and emotional liberation, for your abundance, to be more effective in the work that in the purpose for which you were created. So this is really powerful work for you. Okay? So the 12 Steps of Recovery is a powerful roadmap that brings you home to wholeness, oneness, love, and freedom. It will reconnect you to the soul of all life, and the soul of all life is one with your life. When we clean house in one area, especially as significant as this particular topic, we are surprised at the healing that will take place in every area of our lives. We are one, and what you do to others, you do to all. And what you do for others, you do for all. That is the very foundation of recovery. So here are 3 practical tools that I want you to walk away with today that you can put into practice immediately, like right after you get out of this class or off of this course. There are 3 questions that you can ask yourself on a daily basis. In everything you do, you could ask yourself if minorities are being considered and are fairly represented in your relationships, decisions, meetings, and your organization. Take that question into everything that you do. Number 2, speak up and do not tolerate bias or racial slurs, comments, or exclusion. Stand up and take notice. Number 3, be determined to heal any bias or racist beliefs and thought patterns you may be carrying. And sometimes that's really scary when that's the conditioning and the programming of our family, who we are very close with, and we've been raised a certain way. I totally understand. I am a Black woman raised in a Baptist community. My dad was a Baptist minister. And of course, we had some racist and biased thoughts toward white people, right? And I'm continuously having to heal that, because regardless of the facts of what's been done or what is still being done today, I can't afford it. In order to be of maximum service to God and to my fellows, I can't afford to even have that bias. Doesn't mean I miss the facts. Doesn't mean that I'm in denial about what's happening. But I must use the same process that I'm speaking to you about today so that I can reconnect to the oneness in all of us. So what you're going to get by incorporating soul recovery, the 12 steps to healing racism and recovery into your practices personally and into your recovery practices, is you're going to have outreach to an extended community in need, a greater flow and fulfillment in your work, better results, and less recidivism. You are going to feel reconnected, re-inspired, reignited, and rejuvenated. To learn more about my work, Soul Recovery, how the 12 steps meet the new spirituality, Soul Recovery, the roadmap home, Soul Recovery, healing racism and bias in recovery, or any news about my upcoming YouTube channel launch, or a chance to win a free autographed copy of my book, Soul Recovery, 12 Keys to Healing Dependence, I invite you to sign up for my email list at esthermail.com, and that's ESTER, mail.com. There's no H in Esther. And you can sign up there, and then you will receive all of the information about these upcoming webinars, classes, courses, the YouTube channel, and a chance to win an autographed copy of Soul Recovery. I am honored to be before you today to talk about this really powerful, and yes, sensitive topic. But the deeper it is, the more sensitive it is, the more uncomfortable it is, the more powerful are the results. So I thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today, and I look forward to hearing from you. The first question that I'm going to address is, can you discuss reverse racism, i.e., a Black person being racist towards a white, brown, or yellow person? I believe that racism is a universal disease. It did not begin with white people, and it doesn't end with white people. I believe that every single person on this planet, in some form or another, is suffering from racism to greater or lesser degrees. And as a Black woman, I can tell you that there has been some deep conditioning and some deep programming in my culture, in my race, in my family about people of color, other Black people, white people. It's a deep conditioning in our subconscious mind that has to be healed. You know, in times of slavery, the lighter-skinned person could work in the big house while the darker-skinned people worked in the fields. And it was a taught way of being. It was a taught way of looking at each other of, oh my God, you know, I'm the lighter person. I get to work in the big house, or, you know, I get an extra piece of meat or something like that. And that's why in the talk, I believe I did address generational and ancestral programming and conditioning, so that even today we are being led by that on an unconscious level in a way that we're not even conscious of. So absolutely, reversal racism is definitely at play here, and this disease is up for everyone to take a deep look at, where we're looking at anyone different from ourselves, and to work this process that I've presented to you, so that we can heal, so that we can come into that energy field of oneness, where we get to love our differences, we get to love our sameness, and we get to embody our oneness. So that, I hope that addresses that question for you. I see another question here. It says, how does the admittance of releasing power fall on QD BIPOC folks in recovery, since we as a community experience powerlessness regularly? How I'm approaching powerlessness from the perspective of soul recovery is, we're not looking at it from a place of defeat and hopelessness. We're looking at it from a place of acknowledgement that the part of me that I am familiar with, the part of myself that has been conditioned and programmed to live and be a certain way, or conditioned and programmed in this addiction, that is the part of me that I am releasing control of. I am admitting personal powerlessness, not to be defeated, but so that I can make room, space in my awareness for the unlimited power, that is the one power, the higher power, that is the power of all of us, so that that power can do through me and as me what the ego part of me, the part of me that is wounded and programmed and afraid and all of that, will never be able to do for me. So it talks about, in the basic text of recovery, some of you may know that as the big book, where it states that lack of power is our dilemma. And if I had anything to do with writing that part of the book, I would just tweak it just a little bit. Where lack of power is not our dilemma, lack of having access to the power is our dilemma. We are an expression of one power, higher power. We are made in its image and likeness. So the power is here. But if it is blocked, if we are blocked from having access to that power because of bias and discrimination and racism and feelings of unworthiness and fear and fixed ideas that are not in alignment with integrity and love, then we are blocked from having access to that power. Just like the sun is always shining, no matter what. The sun is always shining every single day. Even during a storm, the sun is shining. But if it is blocked by clouds, then we don't have access to the rays of the sun. And that's the same thing with the power within you. So we're not admitting powerless from a place of, I give up. We're admitting powerlessness so that we can get out of the way and access the real power that is already within us. All right. Let me see here. There's another question. Can I speak on the idea that racism is a natural part of humanity evolution and that it may never be able to be fully healed, but just a continual process? That's a really great question. I believe that natural nature is pure, and that nature is already whole, that nature is already healed. Now, what we do to nature, right, and what we do to ourselves to block ourselves from nature, it has taken centuries and centuries and centuries, layer upon layer upon layer of false belief, false perceptions, trauma, all of that. So, yes, I do believe that there is a process in healing from our human perspective, from our ego perspective. There is a process. That's why step 12 doesn't start at step 1. Step 1 is step 1, and then you go through the steps, the process to have a spiritual awakening, right? And so that is a process, and it doesn't happen all at once. But do I believe it's possible to take a quantum leap, to have a spiritual experience, a psychic change in a moment, in a split second? Something that would appear to be a miracle can happen. I believe in that as well. So I'm always available to that possibility, but willing to do the work to cooperate with that possibility happening. Let's see. Another question is, I am not a person of color, but I want to be an ally. To be a part of the solution, what can I say to others who believe that people of color actually have equal opportunity in this country? I've had those conversations, and I've had to really check myself and examine where I was coming from in addressing those type of comments. And I believe that education is the key. That when I speak to a person about this from an emotional place, the information, the facts get lost. And how we inform someone and how we make them available to what it is that we're trying to say, or whatever it is that we're trying to convey, come with some facts. Come with some education. Give them some links and some videos and some readings to do, so that, because they're coming from a place of ignorance, right? And ignorance is not a bad thing. It just means you don't know. It just means that you haven't made yourself available to the information that would educate you in a way that you're not yet educated. So I believe that when we speak on this subject to someone who is so narrow-minded because of what they have been exposed to, and that's all. They've only been exposed to one particular view about this. And so if you're going to speak to them about it, come with some information, come with some education, and say, would you mind going over this education, over this information that I'm presenting to you, and then let's have another conversation about it. And can you present me some information that might open my mind to a new idea? I think that that's how we're going to get through this, is instead of putting each other down or yelling at each other and yelling over each other and saying you're right and I'm wrong, if we can all come with information and then allow our common sense and our higher sense to guide us from that information. Thank you very much for that question. I'm reading another question right now. Bear with me. How to be braver and allow myself to respond in a more assertive way to microaggressions. To first understand that the microaggressions, the people that are being aggressive towards you in an overt or covert way, that and what they're saying to you, that's not your problem. Your problem is being in fear about standing in your power, right? So this is your individual work to do. That is beyond racism. This is about your self-value and your self-worth and your knowing that you have something of value to say. So that's some deep inner spiritual and emotional work that you have an opportunity to do, so that when you're in conversation with someone, even if you're not in agreement with what they're saying, or they are coming at you in an aggressive way, that you can stand in peace and clarity and truth. And there's something about not trying to convince someone to your way of thinking. If someone is not going to get it, they're just not going to get it. And so it's really about, when you do your own inner work, that you tap into a spirit of discernment and clarity and understanding of, is this a person that can have an effective conversation, or are they not? And if they are not, then you bless them and you move on. And if they are, then you get to stand in your power, and you're not being assertive or argumentative. You're just stating what you know, you're stating your opinions, and you're open to this open dialogue, because I would hope for all of us that when we are in dialogue with someone, that our highest intention, if our highest intention can be to get to the truth, versus my highest intention is I'm right and I need to convince them of that. If my highest intention is of getting to the truth in a way that serves everyone, you cannot lose. So those are my thoughts on that. Next question. How does turning things over to a higher power fit with what I call the quad A bridge work? One feels like an absolution of responsibility by turning it over. The other, a call to action and responsibility. How do these fit together? I believe that in becoming aware, acknowledging, accepting that I am out of alignment is a huge part of turning it over. Because when I am trying to be in control of everything, even in what comes through my awareness, even in what I'm acknowledging or not acknowledging, if I'm not accepting this thing about myself that is causing pain in my life, well, that's not turning it over, that's being in the way. But when I, from a place of humility, can say, something is going on here, it doesn't feel right, I am willing to become aware of what I am not yet aware of. I think that is one of the biggest statements of humility, and I use it a lot. because it's easy to think, especially as a teacher and a spiritual healer and all of that. It's easy for me to think, I have an ego too, absolutely. It's easy for me to think that I know everything, right? But I can feel in my body when what I think I know is blocking me from the very thing that I need to know. So just making the statement, I am willing to become aware of what I am not yet aware of. I am willing to become aware of what is blocking me from being the highest and best that I can be, from being the highest and best way that I can serve. I am willing to become aware of what I am not yet aware of. I am willing to acknowledge that, wow, what I am now becoming aware of could possibly cause harm to myself and to others. Wow, I accept that I've been in the way. And I admit that of myself, I am powerless over this, and I need some help. My friend, I think that's turning it over. I would call that turning it over. All right? All right. There's another question here. I am becoming more and more angry about those around me who display strong racist beliefs and behaviors. How do I engage to stand up against the racism without becoming part of the toxic culture we currently find ourselves in? That's a tough one, right? Especially because of the climate that we're in right now. There are so many people that are saying racism doesn't exist and we're overreacting and, get it together, get over it already. And that's very hurtful to not only a person who has experienced racism firsthand, but who has family and ancestors and friends or just, there are so many white people on the planet who are so hurt by racism because they're in their oneness and they're in their humanity. And so do we argue? Do we fight? There's something in the promises that states we cease fighting anything or anybody. And there's a difference between not fighting anything or anybody and being directed to the right words, being directed to, I call it divine right action, right? So if someone is standing in front of me and they're being angry and they're being racist and they're being mean and they're saying horrible things, I get to stand in my truth. And I get to say that's not acceptable to me. And I get to invite them to become educated about what they're speaking about. And then I get to stand and stay in my peace by being really clear that their thinking is not my problem. So I don't want to be against them, because when we're against something, we continue to repeat it over and over and over again. I don't want to be against people like that. I want to be for people who are about oneness and equality. And based on soul recovery and based on just ancient teachings, that's the law of attraction. When I'm for something, whatever my attention on is what I draw into my experience. What I'm against, my attention is on that, and I draw more of that into my experience. Mind your attention. Mind your attention and be about the business that you are here to be about. We can't be about anybody else's business, thoughts, or their deep core programming. You're never going to change that. That's some deep core work that they have to do. And when I allow that, boy, that gives me a lot of peace. That relieves me of a lot of stress from trying to change other people or trying to convince them to see things the way I see them. I believe that we are at the top of the hour, and so we're going to wrap this up. I am so grateful and thankful that you have joined us for this really important conversation. It's very timely. And if you want to know more about soul recovery, I invite you to sign up for on my email list for my newsletters at esthermail.com. That's ESTER mail, MAIL.com. If you sign up on my email list, I will gift you with all 12 steps of healing racism in recovery. The first 5 people who sign up, I will also send you a free autographed copy of my book, Soul Recovery, 12 Keys to Healing Dependence. And you will receive consistent updates on soul recovery, how the 12 steps meet the new spirituality. You'll be updated on when we're going to launch my upcoming YouTube channel. So just go to esthermail.com and get your goodies. And thank you again so much for being here with us today. Peace and blessings.